I think I think there's going to be a real opportunity in office because I think office, much like retail, is going through an evolution that nobody expected 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It was being driven before the pandemic, but it's really emphasized now in the pandemic. What I think what it becomes clear is there are certain type of jobs that maybe don't have to be done in an office, but that just because the work doesn't have to be done in the office doesn't mean that the teamwork shouldn't be done in an office. So I think we're going to be going through a period of time where we try to figure out what a hybrid work schedule is and all of that. But I think it's going to present opportunity. I make the argument all the time, or at least seems all the time lately, that Los Angeles had a unique kind of microcosm event in '94 when we had the Northridge earthquake, and it basically wiped out all of the 1920s to 1960s office buildings in Los Angeles, and they sat there from 1994 to the early 2000s until the city council changed the zoning laws and created something called adaptive reuse, which changed just the building code a little bit so that you could convert that old office into residential. And then major parts of Los Angeles got converted. Well, we're having a little different kind of seismic shift here, which is that there are just certain office buildings built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that just cannot meet the needs of people today. They weren't built to have zones for their air conditioning. They weren't designed to have people work non-standard business hours. And I think we're going to see as those buildings become obsolete, they'll get repurposed, most likely as residential, given the housing needs. But there's going to be that's probably going to leave 65 to 75% of the remaining office. Some of it's already positioned today. So a lot of the buildings we own, we started doing this a few years ago. But there's going to be a lot of opportunity because location will matter so much, as it always does, to upgrade office. I think industrial is probably the biggest opportunity we see. And I think you have to be careful on how you define industrial, because there is the industrial that is now trading at like 3 cap rates that everybody wants. That's the 1 million square foot distribution building. We're not in that game. That's a game for well-capitalized REITs like Prologis. But there are other subsets of industrial that we think provide a lot of opportunity, because we think work has changed enough where people who used to just maybe have some warehouse space but weren't a big shiny office now are saying, hey, I want to be closer to my product and closer to my inventory. So we're really focused on what we would call multi-tenant, light, flex industrial. And if you really break that down, it's an industrial project that has multiple tenants. It's not heavy distribution, it's light. It has to be flexible, that you can move walls but it still is industrial. And what we found with this product is you can go to almost any major CBD, any major central business district, and see that this was originally built on the fringes and population growth has moved out to it. So a lot of these sit in residential areas, but they'll never get built again, because if you're going to build industrial, the highest profit is to do the stuff that Prologis does. This is harder. It's harder to manage, but we think it presents a lot of opportunity. And so we're seeing that our last 3 purchases have been that type of real estate, this multi-tenant, flex light industrial. And we think there's a lot of other markets. We are in Houston, we're in Las Vegas, and we're going to be in Sacramento soon. We think there's a lot of other opportunities for that and markets from, say, Texas and Colorado west, but we're also seeing it going east. And the last thing I was going to get into is data. So we own a data center. Obviously, that's been an area where in this new world, it presents a lot of opportunity. I think it's an interesting play because it's evolving. There's now this term, the hyper users, the Microsofts, the AWS, the Amazon's AWSs, who are starting to dominate the market. It's changing from what used to be a colo, where somebody would come in and co-locate a bunch of different companies, to now trying to compete with Amazon, and some of these companies makes it tough. Because of that transition happening, we think there's an opportunity in data as well.